If your boss or coworkers were abusive to you, in this topic, we'll explore whether that is illegal. Now, I commonly tell people there's two types of jerks. There's the general jerk, and then there's the targeting jerk. Uh, People who generally mistreat others are nasty. They're just indiscriminately nasty to everyone. And as one court explained, the law is not a morality code designed to rid workplaces of anything that may merely be offensive. Then you have the those who target others for mistreatment. They discriminate. And the key question here is why. And a lot of this video focuses on that. Um, and specifically, what we're looking for is a protected reason. If the reason why this person is targeting you for mistreatment is because of a protected reason, because of you have a protected characteristic or you engage in some protected activity, that that could amount to illegal conduct. So, what are protected characteristics? Those can include race, age, gender, disability, to name a few. Protected activities. These include complaining about something illegal. For example, being mistreated because of your race or age, being over 40 years of age, for example, um, or refusing to do something illegal. Now, how do we prove this? How do we prove that the reason someone was mistreating another is because of a protected for a protected reason? And there's basically two ways to do that: with direct evidence or circumstantially. Um, Circumstantially, there's a three-pronged test that we go through. First, the person who's being mistreated has to establish that some inference to show that the reason they were being mistreated was because of a was for a protected reason. Then the burden shifts over to the employer to provide some legitimate reason for treating the employee the way they did. And then finally, the burden shifts back to the employee to show that the the reason the employer gave is a pretext. So direct evidence, what does that include? For example, let's say a supervisor outright tells someone, I'm firing you because you're too old, or we need to bring in younger, cheaper workers. Now, it doesn't always happen this way. A lot of times, employers and many people in the workplaces these days are sophisticated enough not to do these types of things, but you'd be surprised, it still happens. The more common way, again, is circumstantially. And first, to prove that a person was mistreated for a protected reason, first would be to establish the inference that that's the real reason, and the employee has that burden. Let's take, for example, a failure to hire case. First, you have to show that the person is protected. They engage in some kind of protected activity or they have a protected characteristic, and that person is qualified for the job. Then the person doesn't get the job, and then some other circumstance to suggest some illegal motive. It doesn't, this burden is minimal. But this can include the position remaining open and the employer continuing to look for someone to fill the position. These circumstances are suspicious. It seems as though maybe the person wasn't given the job because of that protected reason, and that's exactly the point. We're just looking to establish an inference, something that an inference that a reasonable person could draw from these facts. Assuming the employee can establish that inference, then the burden shifts over to the employer to provide a legitimate reason um, for the way it treated the employee. And I use this, I put legitimate in quotes because it doesn't have to be a good reason. It just has to be unrelated to a protected reason, something that's it has to be at least believable, but as long as it's unprotected, is not related to a protected reason, then we're okay. So, for example, let's say personal or professional jealousy can technically be legitimate. Let's say, for example, a supervisor is jealous of an employee because they drive a nicer car or they're more popular than the supervisor. While those seem like shallow reasons, if they're believed to be true, they could technically be legitimate. A more common reason that employers give for um, for taking some adverse action against an employee is poor performance. Finally, the burden shifts back to the employee to show that the reason given by the employer is a pretext. It's a false cover up for the real reason. Common ways to show pretext can include the employee meeting all performance standards, as in when the employer provides poor performance as the reason for mistreating the employees and just terminating them, for example. Another way to show pretext is disparate treatment. Now, what does that mean? That's basically when some people are treated differently than others. So, let's say, for example, someone who's engaged in some kind of protected activity or may belong to a protected group. Um, let's say that person is terminated or disciplined for certain conduct, and people outside of that protected group are not. That would be an example of disparate treatment. Now, let's say none of this applies to your situation. Um, you may still have a wage claim. So, and we'll discuss that further in a future video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Goodbye for now.